Madam Chief Justice, and may it please the Court, my name is Joshua Danz. I will be representing the Respondent, Principal Richard Belding, in the case at hand. Today, I will provide two reasons why this Court should affirm the Circuit Court below. First, I will argue that petitioner's actions did not constitute symbolic speech. Second, I will argue that even if this Court decides that they do constitute symbolic speech, she caused a substantial disruption. On my first point, petitioner's actions did not constitute symbolic speech. The relevant precedent in this course is this Court's decision in Spence v. Washington. Spence held that in order for something to be symbolic speech, it must meet both prongs of the Spence test. The first prong being, it must be intended to convey a clear and particularized message. The second being, it must be likely to be understood by others. Petitioner Marie Andrews failed both of these prongs. On the first prong, it must be intended to convey a clear and particularized message. Petitioner Marie Andrews had multiple different messages that didn't fall under one common category as they did in the Spence case. In Spence, he had smaller ideas such as the Cambodian bombings and the Kent State shooting, but they fell under one common category of peace.
Isn't this just like Spence? It's falling under the common category of supporting Amber Green and seeing the big picture?
No, Your Honor, it is not like the Spence case, because in this case, her multiple different intentions don't go under one message. She has multiple different ones, which could be her uncle's tuxedo shop, which could be helping his tuxedo shop, especially since it's nearing prom season. She wants to help bolster his business. Second being, she's running for class president and she wants to help herself. She wants to make herself stand out so people notice her. Another reason could be because of this Amber Green situation in which he's helping her. Another one could be she's a teenager and teenagers look for attention, and this could be one of her ways of getting it. And these can't fall under the same category as each other.
Counselor, if you could say that they fell under the same category as each other in terms of having a common theme of a tuxedo, in this case, if that tuxedo happens to attach itself to a particularized symbolic message, then don't all of them have a common connection eventually to that symbolic message?
Could you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I apologize. Each of these involves a tuxedo. It may be the tuxedo shop, it may be Amber Green wearing a tuxedo in the picture, or her wearing a tuxedo while she's campaigning. Each of those ties to a tuxedo, and ultimately the idea of a tuxedo could be tied to a symbolic message of support students of this school, see the big picture. Do you feel that there's any common thread there, or do you think that it's just completely, because you think they're unrelated, they shouldn't have anything to do with it?
They are not of common thread, Your Honor. The fact that she's wearing the tuxedo may be one thing, but her intentions and all of that doesn't have one common thread. She meant to convey different messages and separate ones, not anywhere near the same, Your Honor. And her having these different intentions also leads me to the second prong of the Spence test, which is it must be likely for others to understand. And how can they understand it if there's all these different things going on? I mean, first, she didn't in any way, shape, or form inform students of why she was wearing a tuxedo, and not all students knew about Amber Green's omission from the yearbook. It is said in the record that only several students had seen it, and not all of the students had seen it.
So in order for it to be a clear, particularized message, everyone in school has to know what it is and understand it?
Now, in order for it to be a clear, particularized message, she must be needing to convey something. But in order for it to be likely for others to understand her message, other people would have to know what she was talking about, or else they wouldn't understand her message at all.
But not the whole school, just the majority. Is there a specific number that we need to have that people who want to understand that?
There's no specific number, but if we go through the whole, all the facts, it's very clear to see that it is not likely for almost anyone to understand it.
Counselor, you heard your opposing counsel argue that the message may not have been clear the first day or two, but that eventually, by the end of the time when she was wearing a tuxedo, that by then people became aware and they began to understand what the message was. Is that true? Does that make a difference?
Your Honor, that is not true. In fact, while on the first day nothing large happened, on the second day she was asked why she was wearing a tuxedo, and she gave a very vague answer to that question. She said, "Isn't it obvious?" It's very possible he came in thinking she's doing it for her uncle's tuxedo shop, where she thought something completely different. And when she said, "Isn't it obvious?" She just confirmed what he thought, but not what she meant, Your Honor. So, also, as I'm saying on that one note, she was questioned by students as to why she was wearing this, which just adds to the fact that it wasn't likely to be understood by others because it's clear that others didn't understand it. And for those reasons, she fails both prongs of the Spence test, and her actions do not constitute symbolic speech. And even if this court does decide they do constitute symbolic speech, she causes substantial disruption. And this court has decided previously that even if there is symbolic speech involved, if there is a substantial disruption, the school is allowed to take action.
What's the substantial disruption?
In this case, the substantial disruption would be her wearing the tuxedo and causing stoppage in class on multiple different occasions. And it's not just the stoppage of class that we're looking at, it's also the trend that we're seeing go along with it.
How was stoppage of class? What was that? Just because of no passing and some vehicles? This doesn't happen in every high school across the country every day.
It does happen in every high school across the country, Your Honor, but it's different in this case. It's a trend that we see growing. So at first it's nothing, then it's the note, then it gets bigger, and it's going to get larger and larger and larger. So the principal in this case did not act on undifferentiated fear, as did the principal in Tinker. In Tinker, the principal saw nothing. He had no evidence that it would grow into something, whereas in this case, nothing happened, then something small happened, then something larger happened. The student became insubordinate after being asked to take off her tuxedo and not wear it. She continued wearing the tuxedo. There's a trend going on that's setting itself up for something bigger and bigger. And that is why she's causing substantial disruption. That's why the school is allowed to act on this.
Didn't in Tinker they say that like a student's right, a constitutional right is to stop at the schoolhouse gate, something like that? Don't we need to also, while we're disciplining students, don't we also need to protect their constitutional First Amendment right to kind of wear what they want and express themselves?
Your Honor, that is true. We do need to protect what they think and the need to express themselves, but we also have to look out for their well-being. In other cases, such as Blackwell, students were walking around with these buttons and they were putting these buttons on people, and in that case it may have been a physical thing that was happening. When the court decided that the school may act if it is in the well-being of the students, in this case it's something mental. It's not physical, but it's the stoppage of the learning process. The principal is looking out for the well-being of the students and what they're being taught and making sure that they get the knowledge that they came to school for.
Counselor, I have a question for you. Doesn't the fact that there was a substantial disruption at the school, according to your argument, show that the students were paying attention and sort of learning what this was all about?
No, Your Honor, it doesn't show that they were paying attention. I mean, they were paying attention, but not to what they were supposed to be paying attention to. They were paying attention to petitioners' clothing and not the learning, what they were learning at the time, the review for the AP, all the other material that they were supposed to be learning.
But I mean, the fact that they were paying attention to her clothing and being disruptive about it, doesn't that show that they understood that there was some sort of symbolism going on?
It does not understand that it does not show that there was some sort of symbolism going on. They were disrupting class because they didn't know why she was wearing it. They weren't sure if she was wearing it because she was just being for attention or because of her presidential election. So they started laughing and giggling because it's an odd thing to say in a school setting, Your Honor. Now, a couple things that my opposing counsel had said. They brought up the Barber case, and we can differentiate from this case. I mean, in Barber, the student wore this T-shirt, yes, and a student asked them about it and talked to them about it, but it was in the lunchroom. It wasn't during class time, like this case. It was outside the classroom. It wasn't brought up again, and it wasn't also the teachers weren't asking her about it and asking them to take it off also. So for the previous reasons that we have stated, one, that her actions did not constitute substantial disruption. Did not constitute symbolic speech. And two, that she did cause a substantial disruption. We ask that you affirm the court below.